Rarely to change. Who has that recommendation just to be something to find for the summarizing that reason to resonate? Real life rather than that reaction to recall. Real life rather than a reaction to reanimate for the animates and the intimidating for the occasion or dating site that saw that heartbreaking coming down the ground for the couple to find a corporation for the between that course of competition for the signing petition being petty and petrified for the patron for the payroll. Or maybe that for the payback and backpacks and that were told to take a hike and ball to snapping down the field for the calm down. Coming home with this would be against the rivals and having to ride that for the arena for the ghetto areas and suck that for the Ariotas defeat that perversion for the convert their prayers to touch down the body. You have that, but you better ask somebody for what you can find to search for the better place, and this is all for the place to win, for the better race to find. And sex thing of our face, and this is what you face in the finding. Accept that for the sleeping and the rise and the rose in the morning, for that you can find that for the morning, for the yearning, for what you have inside, for this to be the only outcome. You can be painting plans of this, parting ways of the particularly for the comparison, the competing for the competition, the coming, the personal realization for the gathering, any ideas for the faith, the fusion, for the grasping, expansion, for the knowledge of knowing how to make that picture, for the figure, how to learn, for the expand yourself, for the distant basic steps, those stones, finding authenticity for the hands of the dirty, for the ground, for the distance, for the ground up to the tongue, for the displayed in out of the space. Replace that reflecting inside of the perfection of objective for the course of reactive response enough of this responding of all those streams, certain straight timelines and mitigating between the habits and habitual thinking for the roundabout repetition to not make sense of what you can find within the ability for the liable to tell the truth. You'll frame a memory for the time, infuse that for the being unconfusing for the fuss and the spontaneous reaction and heat that energy for the reluctance. Not so much to feel the body for the sentiments, for the nose, the sense, and find the brain, the braille, the scale, the weight, the friction for the frame, for the way to compromise, the adventure, for the incentive, for the events, of course, and find a course. This is out of control for the divine presence and present, for the predominantly dominated, for the famishing elements, and now with the commission growing pains to sprout that doubt, some crown and crop for proportions, instead of that distorted for the colors of the offerings, the station, never reminded for the beats of punishment, enslaved justice. Paragraphs and parallels, the rarely spoken poked to that provocative pronouns, the script of what's described to be distracting with disaster. This is simply for the cognitive thinking and provoke that evidence of the revealing irrelevance and disengagement from the intercourse of the proud that for the detriment of the final mentality. The attributes and final outcomes coming out of the closet for the common defining ground opening for the opposed position for the encompassing for the coming in the times and hands and striking out for the ending out of the without cry for the outlash. Spirits of the scrimmage and the sum of those who was from the root, the containment for the areas and the ride that settling for the departure for the park that for the apparatus and rating and final region, the resolution, the resigning responsibility for the required to reform for retaining rhetoric for the revenue with reaction, every grips of this being good to resume. Realignment, engagement, immerse and projected right in front of the line of nature reactions and visibly activate events such as that for the force and the light glance and fire sticks to eliminate the long celebratory occasions and chanting disparity for the conclusions considered that for the offensive enough for the course of force of the complaint that for the only to come behind. Latency completely confined and the complex. Yeah, that contribution for the travel and for the ways and this will be the wine parties and part setting for the celebrants and the celebrities and the liberates and the liberals. Penetrating impatience and patterns. Penetrating impatience and patterns and turn to projects like penetrating impatience and patterns and turn to projects like projects of gentrification and projects of society for maybe sobriety and libraries checking out that liberty for the dictator for the vagina cords and canal penis and penetrate provocative vindicating for the channels and taking a chance. You find a day for the making, the creating that child for the day will have to create creative natives and this choosing nauseating deviance and experiences to the pier for the boardwalk for the board games and taking that for the paces and bypassing that currency pesos. Thought to paying attention for the 10 for the attendant tremendous and maybe the tremors of the trend that for the settlers of the content that tender heart. Heart beating in the eardrums and the ceremonial for the occasions and cultures and the cure that for the octavius no matter what it would have been for the fate. It was that given for the promise and the peace and the departure for the zone power for the spirit in the world for the Christ Jesus first time for the world. Well, I went had a time for the day for the had to be rich in the life that it was broken to the faith for the it was given for the promises of the jump start for the new for the under the understanding for the underworld for the underwriting the riddles and the long for the day in the history. Reach out and about that generation and find that children who was the first to come back for the last member standing up for the general elections. He leads the lick of the wickedness and the rendering in reality for the hard time to get that into the form of the past and the pastors preaching over the full regulations and regarding the regulars of residing for the backsliding or sliding that for the back to line for the cycle the phases and labyrinth and the surpasses of the serpent for the repeating and the repentance and rather that for the love for the passion for the love for the you can handle divine spirit be able to make those moves and ways in that season invisible for the advance that adversity for the revealing and the sub-perpetual waiting appetite for the fast forward forming the bites and it's like that for the flavor the taste of the bitterness and the provoking excuses of exercise exorcism expedition for the expedited for the expediency of the find the deficient, deviant, developing the countries in the coinciding for the countless and times to find the second-hand chances for the chairs. Charities to find that share. Children to the future for the present them states and steady for the set, for they're still assimilated for the stipulation, for the simple to slum, for the complicate, for the compel, for the pool, the bullshit premises, for the premonition when their notions they normally wouldn't comply. Comment for the comments and come back for this messengers and missile. What media right and wrong for the righteous and the right, for the present presentation that with the nations and found in countless countries. Counties and counting for the saying they can't contractions. Contract the contrary for the continued concern for the conditions and consequences, the conversion to the course that for the converts. Converse, convoluting congress and confrontation, consider for the constipated for the consequently. Conspiring, consolidated for the council, for the confusing, confident for the confidential, for the information that companies and compensate for the consumers and continue for the connecting command. Code and condition, consider for the conniving, contorted conversions and contemplate the template. Giving the grief for the grace and gravitation of gravesites and vision to remember the rights of the left of the soul for the call, the karma for the character. Charity or rarity to change.
Hard to touch, out of reach, hard to teach, you to learn. For the concern for you to burn your time away could be the essence for you to not have that such experience. But you don't want to keep running from what you're running from, for what you're facing. What you were facing until you know where to run, for the lookout for the how much you hate for the where you instead of that changing it where you were need to be. Allowing your divine be yours and having pride for where you come from where you're going to be, for the, all the calls of pay, for the mind, for the reminder, for the replicate, for the faith, for the innate, for the out of the ratio for the rationality to the technical prototype. Protocol for the Ronin answers, it's all seen. All things all learned for the all time, for the all the line, for the parallel, for the fortress, and tell your tunes and play. This is when you, the reverb for the action, the done again, for the repeating in the chords and cordially coordinated for the core, dating exclusive for the blind dancing with that fate. Make sight, see or near, share for the forest, as for rest, barely bear, back rarely, share to see the shore, shortcomings and short, coming short for the coming to sort, absorptive, supportive for the portions of impotence, for the competence for the sentence, and to be sent for the completely compelling and spare. Spread out for the cloth and the plum become blog from the blind outside for the perspective. Spectating reality for the relocating from found inside the deposits and despised after the disparities. Paired intuitively. 3 for the trinity to society instead that trends to be pretending for the tenant subject for the objectives and the relative and the impact for the impulses and be like heart beating. Each other for the one and the words and this will be the going to say for which is tie time. Tie. Union to the tithe. Funding the fundamentals for the form meant for the fun feel for the emotions of emptiness and less than the food for the folly for the mentality marks and find the spots and awkwardly calling yourself callers by the name. Indicates that for the dictator. Out of state for the roaming and ramifications and homing enough for you can find the bullying. Bullshit for the yearning for the yearnals. In turn for the turns to the integrity for the integrity for the degraders and what you can find that for the teaching and taunts and talk for the broth. Bring the wine find the wine house of the only grain organic organs. Corruption the correspondence to make that identifying the weight to wait. Heavy delay for the patients that are sick of the pain for the face by perpetrators for the aggravated for the aggravated. Cultivation, aggro. Fire cane short for the growing and knowing the heights and no wings will get you to the faking factors and to vacate that also vacant renewable verbal innovations and this is a sitting ovation for the standing and no reason for that to be sitting there for the theory. Symmetry that indicates that for the circumstances that it stands and that for the chance to learn to go in the high school for the thought for the conviction and convoluting for the loitering and the premises and the premier for the prematurely premeditated for the art can be mediators. Hard to touch, out of reach, out of reach. Hard to teach. Hard to touch, out of reach. Hard to touch, out of reach. Hard to teach, you to learn. For the concern for you to burn your time away could be the essence for you to not have that such experience. But you don't want to keep running from what you're running from for what you're facing. What you were facing until you know where to run, for the lookout for the how much you hate for the where you instead of that changing it where you were need to be. Allowing your divine be yours and having pride for where you come from where you're going to be, for all the cause of pay, for the minded, for the reminded, for the replicate, for the faith, for the innate, for the out of the ratio for the rationality, for the technical prototype, protocol for the Ronin, the answers, it's all seen, all things all learned, for the all time, for the all the line, for the parallel, for the fortress, and tell your tunes and play. This is when the reverb for the action, the done again, for the repeating in the chords and cordially coordinated for the core, dating exclusive for the blind dancing with that fate, make sight, see or near, share for the forest, as for rest, barely bear, back rarely, share to see the shore, shortcomings and short, coming short for the coming to sort, absorptive, supportive for the portions of impotence, for the competence for the sentence, and to be sent for the completely compelling and spare. Spread out of the cloud, claw from the plum, become blog from the blind outside for the perspective. Spectating reality for the relocating from found inside the deposits and despise that for the disparities. Paired intuitively. 3 for the trinity to society instead that trends to be pertaining for the tentative subject for the objectives and the relative and the impact for the impulses and be like heart beating. Each other for the one and the words and this be the going to safely which is tide time. Tie, union to the tithe, funding the fundamentals for the formament, for the fun field, for the emotions of emptiness and less than a fool, for the folly, for the mentality marks and find the spots and awkwardly calling yourself callers by the name. Indicates that for the dictator. Out of state for the roaming and ramifications and harmony enough for the find the bullying. Bullshit for the yearning for the yearnals. In turn for the turns to the integrity for the integrating for the degraders and what you can find that for the teaching and talks and talk for the broad. Bring the wine and find the wine house of the on the grand organic organs. Corruption to correspondence to make that identifying to wait. Heavy delay for the patients that are sick of the pain for the face by perpetual pressure. Raters for the aggravated for the aggravated. Cultivation, aggro. Fine cane short for the growing and knowing the heights and no wings will get you to the faking factors and the vacate that also vacant renewable verbal innovations. And this is a sitting ovation for the standing or no reason for that to be sitting there for the theory. Symmetry that indicates that for the circumstances it stands and that for the chance to learn to in high school for the thought for the conviction and convoluting with their lowering and the premises and the premier for the prematurely premeditated for or can be mediators.